Hello everyone. Today's poem is Shao Wind, a Shao Wind from the Book of Songs. This poem is about a marriage of a princess, the daughter of the king. Why these poems appeared in the Shao Wind? Because the Shao Wind is the poems from the Shao state. It's because of the code of conduct or because of the traditions. When the marriage happened between two states, the boys' states will send a big troop to the girls' troop and fetch the bride back to the boys' state, and finally the wedding was completed. Well, for the princess of the king, because of the social levels is so different, so if the princess was married to a state, in this case to the Qi state, the Qi state sent a big troop to fetch the princess in the capital, right? But because of the king as well as the princess was superior compared to the state, so the king will assign this task to one of his Zhou state, normally the Shao state, or maybe the Zhou state, because these two states is the most senior and most close state to the king, and they are all of the Zhou family blood, so they are basically from the same ancestors. So in this poem, it describes some of the details that tell us very clearly and also confirm this tradition. When the princess marriage was taking place, the king will assign the Shao state to as the host of the princess. So the Qi state will send his troop to the Shao state to fetch the princess. So that's the way. And then let's come to this simple, straightforward. There are some of the very interesting characters and metaphors in this poem. Okay, the first paragraph. 何彼襛矣，唐棣之华. Why that is of such a abundance? Because that's the flower of the Tangdi. Tangdi is a plant in the hall, in the garden. You know, the Chinese garden was surrounded by houses, so that's not like the normal garden. That means the center of this house. That's a very important place for meetup, for just like a living room sometimes. And here, Tangdi was a double referring. Tang refers to the same house, the same ancestors. Di refers to the brotherhood. So Tangdi refers the brotherhood. It's a big family. So basically, the Tangdi referring the brotherhood with the same blood within the same big families. And here it refers to brothers, sisters with the royal blood, because this poem is about the marriage of a princess. And the character Nong, in the surface, it means something with a very, very thickness. And the extended meaning is of abundance. So normally in this poem, this character was described that the clothing was very thick, which means a splendid attire, the most beautiful clothing they are wearing, because the marriage is one of the most serious events during for a people, right, in his lifetime. Not to say the royal marriage, the princess to a son, to a lord in a state, in the Qi state. The second pair of sentence, 何不肃韝，王姬之车. Why does this event, why this circumstances is not solemn, is not with a very well manner? Because that was the chariot of the princess. So the second pair of sentences actually point out this is something about the princess. Of course, in the second and third paragraph, we know it's a marriage. But here, it's the second pair of sentences is to justify the first pair of sentences, because the first pair of sentences just tell us this is the most grand events which was defined by the code of conduct, the dress code, the chariots, the rituals whatsoever. So this, the first pair of sentences just tell us this is a very, very grand and a serious event. And the second tell us this is a very happy and not serious event, because it's a marriage. So the people are crowded and they are playing, joking with each other. They are talking to each other. So it's not just like the other grand events. Let's see the sacrifice in the ancestor temple. That's also a very grand event, but it's a very solemn ritual. The second paragraph, 何彼襛矣，华如桃李. Why that is of such a abundance? It's just like the flower of the peach tree, of the plum tree. So here it's getting clear. It's all about the princess, right? To use the flower to describe the beauty of the princess, just like the flowers. Okay, the next pair of sentences. 平王之孙，齐侯之子. She was the grandson of Ping, king of Ping. He was the son of the Qi state lord. So this pair of sentences actually tell us a very, very clear situation. So far, we finally know it's a marriage, because in a normal day, the girl never goes by a boy, right? The girl stays indoor only. But at these circumstances, the princess was with the boy, the son from the Qi state lord, and they are in the most grand attire in the chariot, and it's a marriage, and no other circumstances. Especially this happened in the Shao state. The Shao state take the responsibility as a host to marry the princess to the Qi state, to the son of the Qi state lord. And there is a real king in the history so called as Zhou Ping Wang, king of Ping. But the normal explanation to the king is not that king in the first king of the East Zhou dynasty. Normally, in the history, this king was explained as the King Wen, the first king who founded the Zhou dynasty. There's a lot of things because I won't talk too much. So there is some reference in the history book that the King Wen was praised by his merit of Ping, and the second king of the Zhou dynasty, King Wu, was praised by his merit of Ning. So that's why in the history, Ping Wang here was taken as the first king of Zhou. But I don't buy in this idea at all, because in the Book of Songs, the poems is to record. That's the principle in that time. So when they write up this song, this poem, they will use a very decent word to write down the names whatsoever, right? They won't write down the king's name, especially the first king of the Zhou dynasty or the first king of the East Zhou dynasty. Write their name in an alternative way, right? So in that sense, because of the first king of the East Zhou dynasty was so called as Ping Wang, his descent, his formal name. So here, it should be referring to that king. And what's more, in that time, the Zhou dynasty was in its weakest time, and everybody think the Zhou dynasty will collapse. They even run away from their capital and fled to their new capital in Luoyang. So the Ping Wang, the king of Ping, has its capital in the city of Luoyang, and most of the state lords, they don't buy in the new kings. They don't listen to him. They don't obey the order from him, and everybody think the Zhou dynasty will collapse very soon. 10 years later, 20 years later, something like that. But the Qi state lord, Qi Huangong, a very, very famous figure in the Chinese history, he has a very, very powerful state. That's at the first hand. And secondly, he tells everybody that it's still the time of the Zhou dynasty. As a state lord, as a most powerful state lord, at the time, I obey the order of the Zhou king. We should follow the code of conduct, and let's to restore the order of this country, because without the king of Zhou, all the states had to stand on their own feet. So there's a lot of conflicts. They had to settle the conflicts between the states by war or by their own power. So there's a very, very bad time until the Qi state lord stand up. He said, I'm the most powerful state lord, right? Everybody says yes. And he said, let's obey the code of conduct. Let's respect the king of Zhou, and let's listen the order of the Zhou. If you don't agree, you are my enemy. You are the enemy of the most powerful state. So this poem was most probably reflect the time of that period. The Zhou king was so weak, and the Qi state was very powerful, but the most powerful state at the time. And they try to use the marriage to enhance the relationship between them two. And in the third paragraph, the poet just put this thoughts straightforward. Let's see. 其钓维何，维丝伊缗. What they are trying to fish, they are trying to use the silk thread to connect each other. So this sentence actually is using the fishing to parallel the marriage. The bait is the princess at these circumstances, and there is a silk thread to connect the both parties, who the fisherman, as one of the party in these circumstances, is the king of Zhou, and he used the bait, the princess, to take the Qi state. The Qi state is the fish, right? And the marriage is just like the thread, a virtual thread to connect the fish and the fisherman. So this is the metaphor. So let me rephrase it again if you don't quite get it. The king is the fisherman, and he wants to make a strong relationship with the Qi state. The Qi state is the fish, right? So how he make the relationship? He use a hook with the bait. The bait is the princess. So the fish would take the bait, the princess, right? And finally, they are connected by the thread. The thread is the marriage, right? And the fisherman, the king of Zhou, was connected to the Qi state, the fish, with the thread by the marriage. So that's a metaphor. Very nice metaphor. Okay, the last sentence. 齐侯之子，平王之孙. That couple was the son of the Qi state lord. That bride was the granddaughter of the king Ping. The last sentence actually reflects a lot of things. So in the Zhou dynasty, so it's just like a society of nobles, of feudalism. The social level is the most important things. But in this poem, in the last sentences, the son of the state lord comes first, and the grandson of the king came second. So which means at least they are equal, right? So that's something quite strange. And this very probably reflects the king, the Zhou dynasty, was really, really decaying, is of less power, with very, very few power. At the same time, the Qi state is very, very powerful. And the poet tries to use this strange, abnormal sequence to reflect the real situation, and the king relies on the Qi state very much, and this marriage is the hope for the king to stabilize the whole country, to stabilize his own position. Okay, that's for today. Bye-bye.